This quiet man, this very private man, now holds the most public job in Israel. For 10 months now, he's been the Prime Minister. For 2 months, we were with him observing the life of Yitzhak Rabin. His day normally begins at 7 in the morning and often goes past midnight. For all this work, Rabin has a very small personal staff. The office atmosphere is informal, but businesslike. Rabin is a clean desk man, reflecting the years of the organized discipline of his military life.
He's a speed reader, and the combination between his speed reading and this analytical grasp of what he's reading means that he's able to isolate the important from the less important.
Rabin is the Prime Minister at what many think is the most difficult and complicated period in Israel's short history, facing not only the problems of survival, but the increasing social and economic pressures of a growing urban society. The major problem is defense, and the burden it imposes on the Israeli, one of the highest taxed persons in the world. Rabin's labor coalition holds a slim majority in the Knesset, or parliament. Although elected for a 4-year term, his government could fall at any time if it loses a vote of confidence and its majority in the Knesset. Therefore, Rabin must now, above all, be a politician. Before the talks with Egypt broke down last month, Rabin's ability as a politician was severely criticized by Menachem Begin, the leader of the opposition in the Knesset.
Well, let us remember Mr. Rabin was never a member of the Knesset, was a very short time a member of the cabinet, as a labor minister. He just doesn't have that experience. It's a very crucial time. We have difficult problems. May I say, he's a very young adept of policy. And as times are very complicated, this lack of experience, of course, is telling.
Rabin won such overwhelming popular support for his stand against Sadat and American pressure that his political leadership was firmly established. Even the opposition agreed.
This time we stand together in the defense of our people and country. I suppose this stand of the government in rejection of the Egyptian demands is accepted by the overwhelming majority of our people.
That new popular support has strengthened those who had been arguing all along that Rabin might well be the right man at the right time for Israel. That now is the time for a quiet, analytical leader whose personality does not upstage the issues. As we followed him on his busy schedule, we flew to the southern region of Eilat on one of Rabin's frequent trips to answer those who say that he's out of touch with the people and their problems. He went to the Timna copper mine, which has been producing ore since the days of King Solomon, to check the economic impact of the falling price of copper. Rabin also visited several communal settlements in the area. The children are the kibbutz's treasure. They are the commitment to the present and the hope for the future. Here, they were the focus of attention. And it was here that Rabin performed the symbolic act of faith in a growing Israel. And here, Rabin was asked for help to attract more young settlers away from the cities. Much of his time is devoted to American visitors, and cultivating support for Israel is the main effort. Rabin, the Prime Minister, speaks to an endless succession of lunches and dinners for leaders of fund campaigns in the United States, who are brought to Israel to see how their money is spent and return with a renewed dedication to collect even more. Rabin sees members of Congress privately to discuss his problems in what Washington has learned is the Rabin manner, blunt, straight talk. Senators Daniel Inouye and Charles Mathias of the Appropriations Committee, probing Rabin's request for $2.5 billion in grants and loans. Senator Charles Percy of the Foreign Relations Committee, discussing the negotiations with Egypt. A group of top American business executives on a Middle East fact-finding tour were received at a private dinner in Rabin's official residence in Jerusalem. They presented him with a crystal dove.
Thank you very much. I hope that it's not exactly a dove, and it's not exactly a hawk.
Rabin's problems are seen in the context of other events by a soldier who did become a farmer. General Ariel Sharon is the controversial hero who led the Israelis across the Suez Canal in the Yom Kippur War. He's a friend of Rabin's, but also has been one of his severest critics.
In all these talks about guarantees, that is, I hope that will not attract the minds of our government, because we don't have to go far. We saw what happened to Taiwan. We saw what's going on now in Vietnam. Just now in Cambodia. What one can expect? What are the guarantees? The only guarantees that ourselves. And when the guarantees are ourselves, so we have to sit on the right places until we can achieve a real settlement.
Rabin has often been challenged on a degree of his dependency on the United States, now virtually the only source of Israel's military, financial, and political support. It was said that because of this, Rabin was being pressured by Henry Kissinger in the negotiations with the Arabs. Before the talks broke down, Rabin answered this accusation when we visited one of the focal points of the Middle East crisis, the Mitla Pass.
There is no commitment on the part of Israel to do what the United States will recommend Israel to do. We are an independent state. The future and the security of Israel depend on us, and this government sees itself responsible for the fate, the future, and the security of this country, and will do it only by our own conscience and according to our best judgment.
Mr. Prime Minister, about 6 months ago, my colleague Peter Jennings walked on this side of the canal in the desert with President Sadat. He asked President Sadat why what seemed to be just a pile of sand was so important to Egypt. President Sadat answered, "It's because it's the motherland." Now, why is this barren area so important to you?
This process, as a matter of fact, is a wall that can prevent very effectively any attempt by the Egyptian forces to move eastward towards Israel. Therefore, this area is a key area to me in a war. It's an area that we must control if there is no peace, if there is no elimination of the state of belligerency, the state of war.
If war does break out again, most of the burden of survival will be borne by Israel's sons. On this same day, we flew to another area deep in the Sinai desert for a very special occasion. This day, the Prime Minister was also a father, a parent among parents in the spectator stand. It was the day Yuval Rabin received his commission as a tank officer in the armored force.
It's a great pleasure to see your son going to the military service, to be graduated, to become an officer in the tank corps here in Sinai. On the other hand, while it's still sad that people have to devote so much of their resources, their energy, for what is not a really constructive purpose.
Prime Minister, this program has been largely an assessment of you personally. I would like to ask you to make a personal assessment, too. You have devoted perforce your life to the use of military force to achieve ends and done so very successfully. Is that not an inhibition on your changing your attitude now, denying force, applying conciliation, and negotiating for peace?
By no means. I think the fact that I served for such a long time in the military service brings even more force to my determination to try to bring about peace, because I was involved in the futile use of force that practically didn't bring the Middle East closer to peace.
President Ford said that the present stalemate is now unacceptable, and that the United States would make a major new effort to bring peace in this area. What initiatives do you foresee?
I believe peace will be achieved if first the countries of the area, the Arab countries and Israel, will come to the conclusion that the time is right to put an end to the war and to build a structure of peace. And second, if the major powers will put more responsibility on the parties to the conflict to be the parties for the peacemaking process. I think it's time that the major powers will tell to the parties to the conflict, it's your responsibility. And to tell to President Sadat, you have to make direct contacts with the Israelis, because without direct contacts, how really peace can be achieved?
We are engaged still in that reassessment of all foreign policy. Now, you've made a very constructive proposal. If someone asked you for counsel on how we should reassess policy, would you have any other proposals to offer?
I would say, first, we have to have a cooling off period. I'm not talking about years, I'm talking about few months, might be few weeks, in which all sides have to reassess their policy. I think that the statement by the United States that the United States reassess its policies should not be interpreted, first, as a readiness to give in to the side that shows more stiffness in its position. Second, it should not create hopes in the Arab minds that Israel and the United States are going apart, because the only conclusion that can be taken by the Arab leaders as a result of such development, which I hope will not happen, is to harden their political position and might even lead them to the assumption that it's possible to go to war.
It's been said that you are inflexible and that you are not willing to take risks for peace in your negotiations with the Arabs. How do you answer those accusations?
Well, by just asking the one that says so on what he bases such saying. I believe that we have put through the good offices of the United States variety of options. We were ready to a wider interim agreement. We were ready to enter into peace agreement. Therefore, the saying that because of non-belligerency or the refusal of Egypt to end the state of the war, the negotiations were broken, it's not true.
In the area of weapons, you have a very large and very secret nuclear installation at Dimona. Does Israel have a tactical nuclear weapon or the ability to put one together on very short notice?
Well, first, you assume something which I have to deny. Second, what we have made clear, that Israel will not be the first to introduce nuclear weapons into the Arab-Israeli conflict. This was and this is our policy.
Not clear what you were denying. You said you had to deny something, he said. But
I don't know what he mentioned, since he said something about secret installations This is what I deny, because I think it might be interpreted in the wrong way.
Do you have a tactical nuclear weapon?
No.
The reason he asked that, I'm sure, is because one would think that a small nation with its back to the wall would be prepared for the ultimate if it had to apply the ultimate.
Well, no doubt Israel is ready to the ultimate for its defense. But we believe that we live in an era in which we can do it with conventional weapons.
Since the Palestine problem must be solved one day, wouldn't it have been wise for Israel to negotiate with King Hussein when he held nominal sovereignty over the West Bank and not wait until the PLO now has attained ascendancy? Wasn't that a missed opportunity?
Well, one can say that there were missed opportunities in the last 27 years in moving towards peace. I believe that the Palestinian issue can be solved in a context of negotiations between us and Jordan by the establishment in the former Palestine on the east and the west bank of the River Jordan, two states, one Jordanian Palestinian state and west of it a Jewish state, it is to say Israel. I believe that this is the real solution to the problem, and I hope that once it will be achieved.
If a Geneva conference does come about, and the PLO does have representation at the conference, what effect do you think that will have?
Well, Israel's position is very clear. We would not sit and would not negotiate with terrorist organization representation in the Geneva conference.
Does that mean you would not sit in any sector of the conference at all? Not attend?
I don't know what are going to be the procedures, what are going to be the ways of meetings, in what way the whole concept of Geneva conference will be worked out.
But are you saying there is a possibility that you would not attend the conference at all if the PLO sits in the conference?
I have said we would not negotiate with the representation of the terrorist organizations.
You think that America's ability has been limited by the numberless upsets we've faced lately? Do you think that America's been weakened to negotiate in the Middle East by these things?
Well, I cannot deny that in the eyes of certain people all over the globe, the United States has lost in terms of its strengths. The United States looks a little bit different than it was before, but still, I don't see anybody else who can do it better than the United States.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you indeed.
Thank you, too.